Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Joe Taylor. This morning, another in the ongoing series of programs presented by the Regional Early Learning Resource Center. The program, through the Northwest Institute of Research, oversees a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services and the Department of Education. The goal of the program is to improve the outcomes for young children as they prepare for school. John Posa from the Early Learning Resource Center is the host of the program and is with us throughout the series. And John, we've been doing the program so many years now that we're actually going around and kind of starting again with the guests that we had on, what is it, about 5 years ago, I think.
Well, yeah, almost that. Good morning, Joe. I am so pleased to welcome back Jody Askins, who, yes, as a matter of fact, did the show back in 2015, was with us, and she's the executive director of the Pennsylvania Association for the Education of Young Children. So welcome to the program, Jody.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be back.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back. And the reason why I wanted to have you back is because you are very involved with a new statewide launch that just occurred not that long ago about a campaign that's called Start Strong PA. And for our listeners who may not be aware of this campaign and what it's all about, why don't you kind of fill them in?
I would love to. Thank you. So in Pennsylvania, we have a group of organizations who have done advocacy work on behalf of young children and the programs that serve those young children and their families, who've been together for probably 20-plus years. Mm-hmm. And over that time, we've developed a couple different advocacy campaigns. The one we talked about 5 years ago, I believe, was the PreK for PA campaign. And so that coalition is really designed to highlight those areas of programming under the Office of Child Development and Early Learning in our state administration to really raise the visibility, the awareness, and increase funding. And so as we have learned over time about the interest and the influence that we've been able to gain over pre-K, we understand that has had some very positive, but also some effects on child care programs that indicated we really needed to focus on child care funding. And so about a year and a half ago, our coalition of partners, which I will run down if you don't mind.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Great. So it's the Pennsylvania Association for the Education of Young Children, the organization that I head up. Fight Crime, Invest in Kids, which, as you may know, but maybe some of your listeners don't, is a bipartisan nonprofit anti-crime organization,
right?
Comprised of police chiefs, sheriffs, district attorneys. So these are some of our unlikely allies. Mission Readiness, also a bipartisan nonprofit national security-focused organization, another unlikely ally. First up, formerly known as the Delaware Valley AEYC in Philadelphia.
Right.
Trying Together, formerly known as the Pittsburgh AEYC in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. The Pennsylvania Association for the Child Care Association, the Pennsylvania Head Start Association, Pennsylvania Partnerships for Children, Public Citizens for Children and Youth, and the United Way of Pennsylvania. So we've got some really strong partners. And as I mentioned, about a year and a half ago, we all decided we needed to do some real efforts around reaching out to our child care provider community to say, what are your needs, what are your struggles, what are your successes, and how can we raise those up in order to put them in the forefront of our communities, our elected officials, and really raise awareness. So we designed over time, not just with these coalition partners, but with our child care partners, Start Strong PA. Start Strong PA really has four main policy goals. Our overarching mission is to give all Pennsylvania children an equal opportunity to a quality educational foundation that will prepare them to grow, learn, and succeed. So the policy goals that we believe will help achieve that are, number one, increasing state funds for high-quality child care. And we are focusing on the first 2 years of this campaign on infants and toddlers. Number two, we're paying providers adequately so those infants and toddlers can get the consistency in their routines and the relationships that we know is essential for that success in their learning and growing. Number three, attracting, compensating, and retaining additional talented adults to become early childhood educators. And number four, making sure the child care system and programs are doing this in the most efficient and effective way.
That's fantastic. I wanted to ask you about the whole campaign in itself, and I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the what I have seen over the years in the early childhood realm is that in terms of our marketing and our leveraging of funding and so forth, whether it's through the General Assembly or just in the greater community, we've often used that word preschool, okay?
Right.
And sometimes with, people not really being close to the field, when they hear childcare and they hear preschool, there is a difference between the two in terms of funding and in terms of the approach and the importance of both. And I think this is the other thing that I think Start Strong PA wanted to bring about, is that the importance of infant toddlers, which is really childcare and not preschool, correct?
Correct.
And so
Correct.
The reason why I bring that up is because sometimes there's actually different funding streams as well for both. And sometimes it's not fully understood. And that's why not only the funding aspect of it, but the aspect of child development and the fact that all the research shows us that children's development in terms of the brain itself occurs, the brain grows most rapidly in those earliest years, specifically from birth to grade 3. And the other part of this campaign is in getting the word out, and I don't want to speak for you, but basically the importance of working with our children and communicating with them and doing all that we can to nurture their development at those earliest years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, John.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to make sure that I was also kind of like knew that, there's the part of going through those 4 goals, as you had mentioned, which are part of Start Strong PA, but also of what parents and caregivers need to stress in their work.
We absolutely know that the biggest difference maker in a child's life is that relationship that they have with a caring adult. And, we have, in our world today, parents have to work.
Right.
We do not have the luxury that families had, 50 years ago, where there were 2-parent households and one parent was able to stay at home. So that caring adult varies in a child's life. And it's really important that when a parent goes to work, that they not only feel as if the place that they have placed their child is one that's going to be safe, but it's also one that's really going to promote their growth, their learning, and that those adults are able to develop the relationship with that child that they need for that healthy development. It is the most critical factor.
I think it's universally accepted that quality early childhood care is advantageous and desirable. Do you think, though, that the government, that would be federal, state, local, business leaders, that other entities, other sectors of society truly grasp the dilemma that so many parents face that they simply cannot afford quality child care?
No, that's a great question. It's interesting because, within the industry, we always talk about the crisis that's happening in terms of not enough high-quality providers, not enough adults that are looking to this field for their future employment, not enough funding to support adequate wages for those folks who are actually providing the care and education. The truth is, though, that internal crisis does not translate to an external crisis. And why is that? Well, it's basically because parents, and anyone of your listeners who's been a parent or has experienced parenting via someone else in their family, parents do whatever it takes in order to do what they need to provide for their family. And sometimes what that means is, they have to look outside of a quality system, because it doesn't exist in some areas, in order to be able to go to work. And so the crisis really is within that family or within that child care program, doesn't translate to the outside world because people do still go to work. Are those employees the most effective employees? We would argue they're not, because they are wondering, how safe, how secure is my child? They are wondering, where am I going to be able to place them? When you have a waiting list for child care subsidy for families who can't afford the cost of child care in order to go to work, and the agency says to them, we will, yes, you qualify, but you're going to have to wait 60 days because we don't have adequate funding to support the need. What do you tell your employers? Well, you certainly don't say, I can't take the job. So parents figure it out, but it is not in the best interest of parents, families, and our communities to have that be the way that we approach supporting families and supporting children.
Yeah. And speaking of the subsidy, you mentioned 60 days. There was a time where they would have to, if they qualified, they'd be on a much longer list and have to wait longer than that. And there had to be an opening, of course. Yeah. And the thing is, getting back to this differentiation between childcare and preschool a little bit, there are very, because, we've had programs on about the leveraging of funding between the business sector and government. And, we often have had guests on here from businesses. And, it's one thing to talk about the importance of it. It's another thing, talking the talk and walking the walk, okay? It's getting those businesses to actually financially make a difference in helping to provide those opportunities with funding for, creating additional quality childcare opportunities for parents. But the difference also is in, when, for instance, let's take the city of Philadelphia, when they developed the idea of with the so-called sugar tax, okay, where they put a tax on soft drinks, which we know the sugar in soft drinks is not good for you. So if people are going to buy it, let's at least tax that, and we can put that to having universal care, okay? Well, the difference is, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the city of Philadelphia, that's for universal PreK, right? It doesn't
Correct.
necessarily include childcare. And I think, could you talk to that a little bit and maybe see where if you feel as I do, that maybe it's just in the way we choose our words, that the public really needs to know and appreciate the difference. And maybe once they understand that, we can get a greater understanding to advocate amongst our families for childcare.
Sure. So this was a really interesting development. As I mentioned in the beginning, as we were advocating through PreK for PA, we noticed exactly what you are describing.
Right.
That we were, I don't want to say easily, but people were able to understand the concept of PreK and grab a hold of that. We've got, national conversations going on. And so when you say the words PreK, people can have some sort of idea in mind. What we did not translate well over time was that actually in Pennsylvania, nearly 50% of our high-quality PreK is delivered in childcare. So it's interesting when you talk to an elected official and you talk about PreK and you ask them where do they think that happens, they don't really have an answer. The answer is, well, a PreK classroom. Well, where is that PreK classroom? I often joke when I'm speaking that there aren't PreK kiosks around the community.
Yeah.
Like, these happen in facilities, and they're not all in school districts. They are in Head Start, they are in nursery schools, and they are in childcare. And in each of those communities, we need to make sure that we are raising awareness, to your point, to say you don't have one without the other. Early childhood is a continuum of care and education, and at each different age, there are different organizations and facility types that help care for those and educate those children.
In many countries, especially some European countries, the government subsidizes child care. Do you think inevitably this is what has to happen in this country?
Well, I definitely think that both the federal government and state government need to allocate more money towards child care. We were really fortunate in the last federal allocation to have a substantial increase in funding through what's called the Child Care and Development Block Grant. I will say, our state has, put really a real strong emphasis to use that federal money towards quality. And that's another one of the catch areas when you're advocating that folks will ask, well, is it better to provide more access or is it better to provide more quality? We argue that access should always be towards quality. And as anyone who's ever experienced low quality versus high quality in any area of their life, you understand that high quality costs more. And the fact of the matter is, when you talk about high quality in child care, you're talking about the individuals that are providing that care and education. We have an average wage right now in Pennsylvania that's near $10 an hour. That's it for our child care providers. That means that the majority, many of our child care providers, about 50% of them, qualify for government subsidy themselves.
Yeah.
What that says to me and to advocates is there is not enough money in the system to help support those providers. The only other avenue to go is to say to parents, you have to pay more. And we understand that especially for low-income and middle-income families, it's just not feasible. So what we want to make sure that folks understand is the government providing additional funds is not to lower the quality, i.e., lower ratios for the number of children to staff, but it's instead to make sure that it's affordable to families.
Yeah, absolutely. We're speaking with Jody Askins, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Association for the Education of Young Children. Jody, I wanted to mention that we had, the head of the Early Childhood Education Caucus on the program recently, he was part of the state representative from Mercer County, who was at the launch of Start Strong PA, and so he was an advocate. And what can you tell us about funding from the Pennsylvania General Assembly this year, as far as specifically childcare, and how it looks in terms of what the governor proposed in his budget, and how we may do in terms of increased funding for the next fiscal year?
Yes, thank you. So the governor proposed his budget earlier this month, and as we do every year with our campaigns, we react to that budget and then we build an advocacy strategy around it. So connecting pre-K to childcare, we were thrilled that the governor put in a proposal for additional $50 million more dollars,
right,
which would increase the pre-K slots by about 5,500. And as I mentioned before, many of those are in childcare facilities. So there's a direct connect there, which we know and understand and appreciate will support some childcare providers. However, we did not see an increase in either of the child care funding streams. And so there are no new state funds proposed from the administration to support access and or quality parent support, the professional development that child care providers need. And so our coalition and our new campaign, Start Strong PA, will be advocating for the legislature to put that money into the budget as these budget negotiations go over time. And as you well know, we begin that process now. So hearings are going on actually today and next week for the two areas of the budget that we're very interested in, the Department of Human Services for Child Care and the Department of Education for our pre-K funds. And so we'll learn about some of the questions we have, and legislators get to ask the administration lots of questions. And, we heard yesterday there were quite a few of those legislators in those hearings that really wanted to know more about child care. So we're very encouraged by that. We were very encouraged by the launch of our campaign, which happened in the Capitol on January 29th. We had over 40 legislators that not just stopped by to see what we were doing, but stood with us during the press conference to say, this matters to us. And so we will be looking to them. We will be looking to increase the child care funds by an additional $50 million.
That's fantastic. Jody, our time has run up. Once again, great information. Great having you on the program. And best of luck for this great marketing campaign, Start Strong PA. And we hope to have you back again.
Thank you so much. And listeners can go to our website, our Facebook page, or Twitter, Start Strong PA, for more information.
Okay, thanks so much.
And that's our program for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks at this same time. In the meantime, you can go online to learn more at papromiseforchildren.com. For John Posa and the Early Learning Resource Center, I'm Joe Taylor. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.